Hey folks, it's Steve Wilmes and Matt Keaton. We're here with the original host of the Risk Control Show, found on YouTube and our blog. And if you're a subscriber, thanks so much for watching. We really appreciate all your support. If you're new to the channel, well, then this is a channel all about risk and risk management for public and private agencies. And we cover a whole bunch of topics, but we try to
Yes.
narrow in on these new relevant issues that are going to present big problems for your organization. So today we're talking about Caltrans, the California Department of Transportation, Matt and I's favorite agency in the whole of California. Actually, I like them a lot better than Cal OSHA.
Yeah.
But
No comment. You want to go down that rabbit hole? I'm good where I'm at.
yeah, okay, all right, be that way. Don't support me. If anyone didn't know, Matt and I are running for mayor and governor. So we're going to take over the state and make this right. Oh my gosh. So over the weekend, I'm laying in bed, about to go to bed, and I see this Caltrans pilot program test replacing gas tax with charging mile per mile driven. And
Yep.
I just immediately almost had a heart attack because I knew it was coming, Matt. And I think when I talked to you this morning, you're like, "Yeah, I saw that too."
Yeah, it hopped up. I'm like, and I looked at it and I kind of put it out to the side. I go, hold on, let me take a closer look at that. But yeah, I think that's the sad part, Steve, living in California is we get so many of these weird initiatives that always come across my phone in my news feeds that after a while they kind of all run together and you go like, oh, now they're doing this, now they're doing that. It just kind of fell into that for me. But yeah, digging deeper as we were doing off camera, you really start to see some of the potential impact of this.
Yeah, big time. And what's so funny is I also saw an article for Shinu Ibu and when it's going to reach its dollar mark and make us all multi-billionaires. And I can't wait for that day. I'm so ready to be out. I
There we
want
go.
out. But then they'll probably tax that at 92% or something.
Headed that
It's
way.
like, oh my Lord. Okay, folks, let me set this up for you because if you're a city, a county, um, but mainly city or town in the state of California, you need to be dead set against this. Same thing if you operate a gas vehicle, you need to be dead set against this. This pilot program is supposed to work out all the kinks, but unfortunately, I don't believe that they've really even thought about it because if they thought about this, they would not even pilot it. It just is
Right.
that wrought with so many pitfalls. And we're going to talk about them today and why, as a city, you wouldn't want to do this or vote yes for this or whatnot. It
Right.
is really a damaging thing for everybody on the road. First and foremost, the whole point is, and Matt, you'll have to kind of fill in the numbers here, but there's a
Sure.
lot of lost tax to the state of California because of the EV vehicle issue, right?
Yes.
Which
Yes,
is
it's already happening because somewhere it's around 1 million to 1.2 million EVs are already registered in the state, and as has been famously noted by just about everyone, in 2035, California is making it illegal to sell any vehicles in the state that are not EV. So we've got just a little over 10 years, and that presents its own issues. But the point is that the state, California as a state, is steering towards becoming an all EV state or limited gas at best. So most of us will be driving EVs. Well, the problem with that is that our road maintenance, which apparently comes at a cost of, hold on, let me look that up again. I think it
was
was
it
800
9.8
to,
billion or something?
yeah, something like that, like 8 to 9 billion per year for road maintenance. Well, that maintenance is
Wait,
supported
what
by,
maintenance? I
you
just
know,
watched I just watched Clarkson's Farm. I think it was episode 6, 7,
right?
somewhere in there, and they're like, let's be construction workers. and they go out to dig this thing, and they put on, okay, we got to put on our safety gear. Okay, we got to smoke a cigarette. Okay, and then they're like, tea break. Okay, it's too late in the day. We got to leave now. That I gotta tell you, Matt, I'm sorry to interject here, and let's keep this train of thought, but you and I do a lot of road tripping for our clients. Arizona, up north, into Nevada, all over the
Yep.
place, right?
Yep. Yep.
How can
And
it
I even do road tripping in my own free time. So it's
Yeah.
something I like to do.
Well, and my folks live in St. Louis. I took my daughter on 2 of those road trips,
Right.
northern and southern route, and I'm always amazed at, the number one indicator is road noise. Like when you're driving your vehicle, how much road noise you have in the cabin. I
Right.
still to this day don't understand, in a state where there's very little rain and no real winter conditions, how we
Right.
got roads that are so messed up. Why are all these grooves in the road? And don't tell me to dissipate the rain and all this. Drive down the road.
Yeah. Right. Right.
You cross into Nevada, silence.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly. It's silence, no problems whatsoever. And what's the other one that I hate when it comes to those road impacts on driving is when the roadway is so bad
yeah,
that you really think that your tire is flat. You actually have
right,
to, yeah, you're almost driving with a little bit of trepidation because you're not entirely sure if your tire is going flat or not.
right.
But then it reaches a smooth and it smooths out. It's like, okay, no, it really was the road.
Yes, I know. And on my motorcycle, when I had the Sportster style, not Sportster, when I had the sport style motorcycles,
Mm,
like the Japanese style, we call them crotch rockets, rice burners. That may not be the preferred
right,
nomenclature now, but that's what they called them. And you would be down there, and it's like, you're bouncing all around, and it's like, how is this possible? And
right,
the bikes are light, so when you're on those little grooves in the roadway, you're going zzz, zzz, like this. The bike is actually doing that, and you're
right.
thinking to yourself, I'm gonna fly off this motorcycle. It's
Yeah.
crazy. Why do they do that? And no one can give us an answer on it. Even when we are with Caltrans, we're like, why do you guys do that? We don't know. We don't know.
Right,
We don't know.
right.
Why? What do you mean
They
you
tell
don't
us
know?
they tell us to do it and we do it.
So, not
Yeah,
to be a conspiracy theorist, especially if you're watching this for the first time, but sometimes I like to throw these little things out there, yes, so people can go down the rabbit hole and find out, is there something to this or is there not? And
right.
the question I have, like, is this some kind of was this some one of these foo-foo, new world age type things where they're like, hey, if we put these grooves in there, it makes a little sound and it'll make people calmer while they drive or more aggressive, or like, what's the deal? Because you saw that, gosh, I gotta find that now, because people say, oh, Eve, that'll never happen. and then and then and Matt and
And
I were
then
talking
years
about
later,
this. He's like, yeah, that would never happen. I said, well, it just happened. Remember about 4 years ago, I was saying we're gonna have a problem with the EVs, and we're gonna get taxed a different way, and it's gonna be miles driven, and then after that, and Matt's like, nah, that won't happen. And here we are. I have an uncanny knack of predicting the future.
no. Well, right now it's just a pilot program, so let's hope that sanity prevails at some point during this process. Getting back to the roadway, the vibration control, they do employ that for the painted lines. They'll actually adjust the grading underneath the painted line so that if you actually change a lane, I see this a lot in two-way roadways out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
like if
Oh
you
yeah,
drive
that
on it and
that make
yeah,
that makes sense, right? It's a warning system. Well, here I
right,
found it in 2014. A musical road in Tijeras, New Mexico, was created featuring America the Beautiful on a 2-lane stretch of the U.S. Route 66. Uh, So, there's all kinds of these little government behind the scene programs that
Right.
occur. And if you ever want to say, well, this stuff doesn't happen, 2 words for you. You ready? 2 words. Great,
What's yours?
Grateful Dead. Grateful Dead.
Grateful Dead.
Yeah. The Grateful Dead and LSD. Okay. That's it right there. So if you don't think that the government is involved in some of these things, then go do a little research. That's all I'm going to say.
Right.
But not to be a crazy conspiracy theorist, I don't want to throw that out there, but no one's been able to answer why, beyond the normal theories of water displacement,
Mm.
obviously on the side of the roads, the advanced warning systems that are created, rumble
Right.
strips, things like this. We know that those are there. What we don't know is why down the middle of the road, like going down the 405,
Mhm.
all lanes have these thin little lines graded in there. Could be earthquake, land movement. There's a lot of, but no one's been able to really explain this to us.
You're with the flow of traffic, right? Not
Yeah,
across.
with the flow of
Yeah.
traffic.
Because that never it never made any sense to me. It's like, okay, well, I would think the purpose is to produce friction so that you're able to slow down and grip the road properly. Obviously, stability is a huge issue with driving, so maintaining that stability, having that friction with the roadway is part of that. And it always feels like when I go over those stretches, I feel in wet conditions particularly, I feel like I have a little bit less control. I'm certainly not trusting of those. It feels like those grooves are creating rivers of water for me to hydroplane on top of.
Right.
Yeah,
Oh,
I've never
yeah.
gotten
See
that either.
here. There's okay. So let me pull this article up. I guess not the only ones.
Okay.
Uh, the Orange County Register. I'm gonna put this in our blog post too, so people can read it, Matt. But
Okay.
they're saying, what's the deal with those freeway grooves that make drive so noisy? Okay, so you cruise down here and they go, yeah, well, the reason they put it in there is when it's wet, they give friction for hydroplane. Okay, that's really interesting because there's 49 other states in the United States that don't do that.
The- yeah,
That
yeah, and
have
I
lots of
feel less
rain.
safe. Yeah,
Like,
and I feel less safe on those than on a good asphalt packed road.
well, let's just put it this way. I bet if we had the opportunity to stop traffic and actually go out on that road and look in those grooves, they're
Mhm.
probably filled with all kinds of little roadway debris,
Oh,
meaning little pieces of gravel and debris, which
right,
whatever, I just don't understand in a place that it doesn't rain that much. Why do you need
right,
I
right.
grew up in Missouri. We didn't have grooves in the road, and it rained all the time.
You
So,
know, it feels like, yeah, at one stretch, I since I've driven across it a couple times recently, it's comes right to my mind. I feel like they have a lot of that stretch on, the Cajon Pass when you're
yeah.
dropping from the high desert down into the LA basin. Well, right at that high point where this is when you're going on the southbound 15. It feels like they have a lot of those sections with the troughs, I guess I would call them, the roadway that are going with it. With just, I mean, that's already feels kind of sketchy because if you're looking out to the left and you're kind of high up, I mean, that's about 3 or 4,000 feet in elevation, and there's a drop off right there. So most drivers are probably already a little bit skittish because hey, there's a big drop off over here,
Oh my God.
and
All the people are skittish. Learn to
yeah,
drive.
learn to drive. But they're
Seriously,
looking at
learn to
that, and then
drive.
oh, I know, I get it, but but then I look down on the roadway and we have these repeated sections too, which again, I believe contributes to a lack of stability. It doesn't aid the stability as that article you found presumes to state.
Well, like I said, you can actually feel your vehicle move with those grooves. You know, and especially if you're on a motorcycle, a lightweight
Oh yeah.
motorcycle, you'll feel it. Ooh, ooh.
Right.
So, anyway, Caltrans, back to your maintenance.
We got
I,
us on a side
I,
side tangent there. So yes, so
I gotta tell you, you know, uh, and this is gonna play into our show today. But Sunday, I went to get on the freeway,
okay.
and they had an exit closed. No advance warning anywhere down. No detour signs. You know,
Ugh.
it's ridiculous. And I just like, guys, you know, we get it. You're working and you got to do these on hours and days that you don't really want to be there.
Right.
I don't want to work on a Sunday either. But
No.
please be kind to your fellow residents. We didn't tell you to do this. We didn't make this, but we're going places too, you know?
Yep.
So,
Yep.
anyway, 9 billion in roadway maintenance. I hate
Yeah,
to,
9
my dying
billion.
butt.
Yeah, per year for road maintenance, and it turns out that most of that is being paid for the drumbeat, our gas tax revenue. So everybody
Woohoo!
knows if you're pulling up into the gas station, you pull it up, you know California is taking a good chunk of that money as part of tax revenue. And you see that anytime anybody who does some road tripping goes up to Oregon, goes out to Nevada or Arizona, those gas prices are a lot lower. Where there's a big reason for that is because California heavily taxes gas, the usage of gas, and most of that money goes into road maintenance, or at least
How is that
purportedly.
possible though? Like you go into Nevada and Arizona and the roads are so nice.
Right? I don't know.
There's like Nevada, I get you got gambling, but
Right. Right.
Arizona?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's a mystery. I've driven on some bad roads in Arizona too, but by and large, it does feel like their roadways are better maintained
Yeah.
than the ones that I see in California. So I don't know. Maybe it's a usage thing. We have a lot of people here. They have less people in those states. Who knows? But the point is that gas tax revenue is how they pay for this road maintenance. So what do EVs not use, Steve?
Common sense.
Okay. Besides that, what fuel do EVs not use? Yeah.
Diesel,
Yeah.
gas.
Gas. Gas.
Okay,
Exactly.
let
So
me just back up a second here because
you think I've
let me
lost
just say
people? They're not
this.
able to follow?
No, for everyone, you know, you can thank Matt and I because I think between the two of us, our gas bill for just running around, and this doesn't include we Caroline, Joan, Susan, anybody else, but
Yep.
I think you and I were around $8,000 to $9,000 in fuel cost
Yep.
this year. And it was funny
Yep.
because I was at Toyota looking at a new car. I'm like, I need something cheap on gas. They're like, this one estimated gas cost per year is $1,800. I'm like, on like, how did they get to that number? How did they
No, they
get to
got like
that number?
averages. They got
Yeah,
average road
they're
use, and
using Missouri
yeah.
gas cost. Yeah, I'm like, dude, come on, come
Right.
on, come on. So you can thank us. Drop some comments into our video and say thank you, thank you, thank you.
Right. Right.
But yes, gas tax, gas
Yeah.
tax. So we
It's
see this all
going
the
down,
time.
Steve. The revenue is going down, and I think California is freaking out because they don't know if they lose all that gas tax revenue, which 2035 we're all supposed to be driving EVs. They're not going to have any more gas tax revenue, and how are we going to maintain roads if we don't have that revenue in? So that seems to be the driving force behind this Caltrans California road charge pilot program that they're doing.
Yes, and as I always say, man, unintended,
Mm-hmm.
they are always there. You have to think about them. And part of this problem, as you indicated during some of your research, and those of you who own EVs, you can kind of drop this in there. I don't own one. Matt doesn't own one, but we understand that the registration fee is $100, right? And I was just
Right.
looking at registration fees on the Harley and all this, and it was like 450, $500, somewhere in that range.
Yep. Yep.
So if you're incentivizing these EVs at the detriment to everything that is funded by the traditional piece, and I get it, there's an environmental factor here that you're trying to obtain, which is,
Right.
how do we offset the carbon that's produced and all the dirty pollutants that come out of fuels. But there's a lot of unintended consequences to doing mileage, a tax per miles driven. And I'm going to lay those out today with Matt. And Caltrans, you can shut your study down right now because it's really not going to work for what you're thinking.
Right.
It's just too complicated. So first and foremost, right there, the registration fee, Matt, if you got 1.2 million cars and you're giving them a $300 discount to buy this car, well, that's a problem.
Yep. Yep.
Why a car is a car? Why are you getting a discount to register it?
Yeah. It doesn't make any sense to me. Again, it's entirely because they're incentivizing, as you mentioned, they're incentivizing the purchase of these vehicles and finding any little way they can, because what they're finding is that people aren't willingly going out and buying these. They need to incentivize them to go purchase these vehicles instead of sticking with the gas vehicles that they've been using all their lives.
Right. Which, okay, if you want to switch to EV and you can do it, great. I can't do it because I have a lot of places to be and I got a lot of miles to put in between them. Yep. And, sometimes we're going to San Jose, sometimes we're going to Oakland, Carmel, sometimes we're in Kingman, Arizona. Unfortunately, there's just not that kind of time for us to sit on the road. I already got leg problems from sitting in the car for 6-7 hours. Last thing I want to do is sit in the car for 2 additional hours waiting for it to charge, and people, oh, it's not 2 hours. The hell it ain't, because we have people that work with us that have EVs, and they tell us, oh, we sat there for 2 hours waiting for the car to charge or waiting to get a spot to charge. And we see that down in Texas and everything else, with the senator or the governor who's, trying to push it and has people going up front and holding spots and all this kind of stuff. So you can say what you want. It's not that I'm against the EVs. The thing is, all the technology just isn't there. And there's always an adoption rate, and you have cutting edge, bleeding edge, right? And that's not me. I need tried and true and tested technology so that I can do my job. I just think a lot of clients aren't going to go, oh, yeah, we'll pay an extra fee for you to sit and charge your vehicle.
Yeah, charge a vehicle. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, the infrastructure is still not there. We have open questions about the ability of the power grid to support a large EV charging population.
Well, we already can't support it here in California. And, And I just got a notice from Edison about selecting our plan for our electric, and I'm just on the standard plan, and the total savings is $30 between the time of use. Well, you get charged more if you use it between 4 and 8 p.m. Well, when are you home to do laundry and do dish? All those people that work from home are doing it during the day. Unfortunately, you and I are out in the field. When I get home and I got to be up at 5 o'clock the next morning, guess what? I need to do things between the hours of 5 and 8 p.m.
Yep.
Hello. So do you want me to pay more for that? So I've never switched, but they have the Prime or the Plus or Premium or whatever package it is if you have an EV, and you got to pay more. And so I think when I look at this, I just go, what's the thought process here? Number one, you get rid of the registration fee. Well, a vehicle is
Right.
a vehicle. You know,
Right.
I don't understand why we tax this and don't tax that and don't tax. It's very simple. Everybody kind of gets the same rate on these things, and away you go. All
Right.
right. Second thing is they give these massive incentives to buy EVs,
Right.
7,500 off. I was looking at a Ferrari at Toyota. It's a hydrogen vehicle. You know, the
Okay.
incentive is $17,500
Wow. Okay.
or
But I mean,
20.
how many hydrogen charging stations are out there?
Not enough for me to get from me to you.
Yeah.
I mean, we have that one school district uh, client, and their employee has a hydrogen. And remember, he ran out of hydrogen. They had to come and bring the tow truck, which was a
Yep.
flatbed because they can't tow it normally. They have to
You're
put
right.
it on the flatbed, and then they have to drive it over. So how environmentally friendly is that? So
Yeah.
that's a damage right there. So you look at these things and you go, who can do that? You know, you're for every incentive that you're giving people, not only are you losing those tax dollars, now you're doubling down on it because now you're giving those tax dollars away to
Yep.
incentivize people to buy something that doesn't produce tax dollars. So,
Right.
so what do we do? What do we do? Well, we need a program. This is the thought process. We need a way to get our money back, Matt.
Yeah, exactly. They're trying to find a way, and that's where Caltrans steps in and introduces this per mile switch. So this is we mentioned before. Let me be very clear here. Per mile, every mile you drive, you're taxed.
This is like
So
leasing a vehicle. Don't go over the
yeah,
threshold or you're effed.
yep, exactly. So this is
Now,
what they're
I'm gonna
saying is
I'm
like,
gonna
oh,
do some
yeah,
prediction right here, right now, Matt.
all
So
right, let's
for
hear it.
historical documentary purposes,
Right,
documentary purposes. Did I say that right? The
yeah, close enough.
point is predictions. Now I predicted this many years ago, and here we are today talking about it. You
Right.
guys can say crazy, but most of you will know I'm like Nostradamus. I can see the future. The point is, what is coming is the tracking of your vehicle. And soon they're going to then limit you because you've already driven a certain number of miles.
Yep.
You're going to
You have
say
a mileage cap.
you have a mileage cap. You've already driven a certain number of miles. You can't drive anymore. Then what's going to come after that is, oh, Matt, your last name is Kita. It starts with a
Mhm.
K. You can only drive on Mondays and Thursdays and
Right.
every fourth Saturday. And Steve, your last name's a W, so you can do Tuesdays and Wednesdays, but because we don't like people with the last name W, you can only drive once on a Saturday every 3 months. You know,
Yep.
this is what it's going to come down to. And it's all about tracking. And so what do we do after these predictions? Do we allow this to just happen like this? Do we give away our privacy? So
Mm,
Matt and I are going to talk about all the downsides, all the unintended consequences that are going to come out of this per mile driven issue. And the
right.
first thing is that you have to figure out how to calculate these per mile taxes.
Right.
So how do you do that, Matt?
Well, you got two ways that you can do it. You can either do kind of a self-reporting system where you can provide some evidence of your odometer at one point in time and then your odometer at a future point in time, and then they'll go off of the difference and hand you a tax bill. Maybe this goes through taxes. Maybe they give you an actual bill like your electric bill. However they do that, or the other option, which is, and I don't like that option, but I dislike the other option even more. And that one is where we all put trackers on our car, or maybe we are all required as drivers to allow our cell phones to be tracked. So either way, you are essentially looking at a serious privacy issue. So
Mhm.
all your motions, all your movements are then tracked. Now, some might say, oh, but they already do that with cell phones anyway. Well, but if you wanted to, you can turn your cell phone off. You can leave it at home. You don't have to bring that. Whereas in this system, you'd actually have to be tracked, and then and that information is always there. That database is always there. And then you're going to find yourself, maybe you are close to a crime that was committed, but had nothing to do with it. But maybe you're tangentially attached to the possibility of being part of this crime. So then they prosecute you because they go into this database and they discover that you were in the area when this occurred, even though there's no actual evidence that you actually participated in the crime. It's some other person that does it. This is it's a severe example, but it's an example of where your tracking can work against you. That privacy concern that you're throwing away becomes a serious issue for your life and liberty at that point.
Right.
So
Well,
I don't did I say the two you had in mind there, Steve?
I think so. I got caught up in looking at this other case about the decision dilemma,
Right.
and I was thinking, we got to bring this in. So I think, yeah, you got the two ways to charge for the miles driven, and the real big problem I have with the privacy and miles driven is, like you said, you're being tracked everywhere, and at some point that leads to, well, do you really need to go there? Do you really need to do this? Why are you going there? Well, let's, these people are over here. We should look into
Right.
this. We should look into that. What is that? Yeah, it's just it's a big brother mentality that doesn't need to be part of our society. This is
Right.
America, land of the free, freedom of movement, freedom of speech. Need to maintain and preserve some of that. And I know
Yep.
there's always a case that you can throw out that says, well, in this instance, this would help us. And the problem with the privacy is that no one can protect the damn data. No one.
Right.
I,
Right.
every week there's a breach, there's a breach, there's a breach, there's a breach. Why do you need my driver's license information? Why do you need my fingerprint? Why you don't need this information? Because you can't protect it, you know?
Yep.
So stop giving it away. So the miles driven, it becomes a really big issue on the front of what happens. We live close to Las Vegas, right? What
Mhm.
happens when Matt and I travel to Kingman, Arizona for work?
Yep. Yep.
How do I account for the miles driven? Well, if I have to fill out a tax form, and not only for business, but now I got to do it for personal life, what a burden and what a hassle. And
Yep.
the thing is, so I don't get taxed in California for the gas,
Yep.
but I get taxed by mile driven, drive to the border, cross into Nevada. Then I fill up in Nevada. I pay gas tax there. Now I drive back into California with the gas I bought in Nevada. Now I got to pay tax on the miles driven, even though I paid tax on the gas. Well, how does that work? Do they charge me for my miles driven in Nevada, or are they that savvy to, you know, calculate exactly where it is and where I started?
Right. It gets and that then you go into different approaches to that. Like maybe they do something where if you cross a border and purchase gas, then you have, let's say, a percentage discount on X amount of miles after you cross back in. Maybe they work that in automatically, but this makes that even more complicated for doing taxes, for tracking this. It just we're all going to be sitting here with our own personal driving ledgers,
Right.
writing down everything. And some of us do that for work, but I think of most people don't. Most people aren't going to be like that,
Well,
and now
let's
they'll
just
have to
take
be.
let's just take the trip from here to Tahoe on the Nevada side.
Right.
you cross over into Nevada at a portion of that,
Mm-hmm.
and you come
Yep.
back through, and
Yep.
then you're back and forth. Like, how do you calculate that?
Right.
If you're on state line and you're like, hey, let's drive over here and grab a burger. Oh, let's drive back. Oh, we forgot tackle, turn around. Oh, hold on, Matt. Make a mark, make a mark, make a mark, make a mark. So,
Right.
so there's an unintended consequence there of creating major tax implications for everyone involved.
Yep.
Now your
Yep.
CPA fee is going to go up. Your expense of trying to track it's going to go up. You're going to sit in the vehicle and you're going to do what? Let the car run, let the gas burn, and you're going to be writing down, okay, at this mile I moved in here. Oh, this mile's Nevada. This mile's Arizona.
Right.
You know, who wants to do that? The
Right.
bigger overall concept here is, and one will come back at the very end, Matt, is the ability to enjoy life, right? It's a
Yes.
quality of life issue. So
Yes.
you got the whole tracking issue. Well, they'll say
Yes.
simple. Put a GPS on it. How many times have you and I been out in places where the GPS doesn't work?
Doesn't work. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got an app on the phone. The phone doesn't work. Well, then they're gonna be hitting you. I got a violation here for the toll roads where their software doesn't work either.
Right.
They charged my vehicle. They said I tried to evade the tax or the toll on the U-Haul, right?
Right.
I've
Right.
logged the U-Haul. It doesn't show up on their software. I've logged it 4 times. I get emails saying that it's in there, but it doesn't. When I go to the vehicle list, it doesn't show it. You got
There
6 different toll fast track companies, 91 express lanes, the fast track, the toll roads, San Francisco. Like, why? It's one state.
Right.
Why do we have all this? So
Right.
so now you want me to report in on the software. You can't log in. You got administrative nightmares, more systems running, more servers running, all this kind of craziness. For what? For something so simple that you buy gas and you pay tax on it. I never thought I'd say I like paying gas tax. Never thought I'd say this. Right? Okay, so that's number 1. So then number 2, you go, okay, every time someone buys gasoline for a lawnmower, they pay gas tax?
I don't know.
What do you mean you don't know?
Probably.
What do you mean you don't
Probably.
know?
I mean, if they go to a gas station, absolutely they do.
Well, where else do you buy gas?
It's a good point. I can't think of any other place. So yeah, they pay gas tax.
Of course they pay gas tax, man. But they're not putting it in a vehicle to drive around.
They're not. They're not.
What happens when
Right.
you buy gasoline for your off-road motorcycle? You pay
Yeah.
gas tax.
Yep.
What happens when you buy gasoline for your boat like we did at Lake Tahoe?
Yep. Yep.
You still pay gas tax,
Yes, you do.
but we're not driving on a road.
Yeah, exactly. It's not going to be part of any mileage that's tracked.
Right. So you have this big issue of how do we track the miles? And now you get into all kinds of headaches about what state were you in, what county were you in, because it's just like the sales tax. Sometimes
It'll be different from county to county.
here. So cities, pay attention
Yep.
here. If you're not getting gas tax, then what? Because we have clients that go, hey, we haven't had new police vehicles in 10 years. Our cars are old, they're beat up. We need new vehicles. We got to raise the gas tax by 1 cent.
Right.
So now
See that all the time.
Yep. And so then what? Are you still getting taxed on that? Are you still going to be able to do that? Does state tax just come out? Like, how do we control this? And
Right.
so if you get a portion of the state tax based on gas tax and gas sold at your area, well, then what happens when that's no longer a part of it?
Yeah, it's just, well, that's the thing. They're going to have to find a new source, which is why apparently they've gone to this per mile. But the way I'm thinking about it, EVs are still going to impact the roads.
Right.
In fact, they're probably even going to have more of an impact because those vehicles, because of the massive battery banks that they use to power themselves, are actually heavier than a similar sized gas vehicle.
Right.
So in a way, that's actually going to impact those roads even more because of that extended weight. Well, if they're not paying any taxes, I mean, the concept with the per mile is that now you're going to tax EVs and gas, and which presents us with these issues that we've discussed. But what I'm thinking is, well, you have a gas tax. Why don't you create an EV tax
Well,
and have that
again,
a charging tax?
go
It
back.
just
Yeah, go back to the beginning. You you do a $100 registration if that's true. Like, I haven't been able to verify that, but if that's true, and normal's 400, 450. So you drop $350 per vehicle. Then you take 300 times 1 million, that's $300 million that you
right.
just gave away. Then you give $7,500 incentive off your taxes from the state and fed and all that to
Right.
reduce your taxes. So you just gave that away and you're not taking in taxes. Well, that's a big gap. Then
Yep.
you say, okay, charge per mile driven. We just went through, you're going to lose privacy. It's a nightmare to figure out where. And then you got cities that are going to be impacted by vehicles coming through their cities. A lot of people love to go to Carmel. A lot of people
Yep.
love to go to San Francisco. A lot of people love to go here and there and here and there. And when they
Yep.
do, a lot of times they'll buy fuel in those areas. So those areas are getting sales tax from
Yep.
food and drink and gas and candy and all these things, and they're getting the gas tax, right? So, point being is, you also get it on registrations. Now,
Yep.
these cities, what do you do with this? How do you do that? How do you look at it? Because those little areas like Carmel or San Leandro or Palmdale,
Yeah.
when we go there, we still fill up because we're going someplace else or whatever.
Right.
You're still spending money there. Now you're coming in, you're putting wear and tear on the road that's in their area, and it's not a state road all the time. So
Yep.
how do they get funded for their roads?
Yeah. Exactly.
How do you
Exactly.
how do you break that out? Miles driven, miles driven, miles driven.
And I offered off camera the possibility that they'll go into this whole tracking thing and go, hey,
Yeah.
GPS tracked that you drove X amount of miles within the bounds of this city. You drove X amount of miles in unincorporated land that will go to the county. What roadway were you driving on a state road? Okay, your miles on this state road will go. It gets very detailed into the specifics of where you are and tracking you, which brings us right back to the privacy issue.
Yes. Now, these are just the big upfront issues, but there's a lot of little details that really detract from your quality of life. And the
Yep.
first is when Matt and I go on a road trip for, we're friends outside of work. We go
Right.
fishing together, we do other things together. So Matt will say, hey, let me buy this tank of gas. Okay, well, I appreciate that very much.
Yeah.
Now what do? Because I'm going to get the tax bill. Do I say, hey, Matt, you want to chip in on my tax bill?
Yeah,
I
bill the tax bill. Right. I'll just Venmo you, Steve. I'll
Yeah,
just send it over by
yeah,
Venmo.
this is great, right? And then how do you break all that out for work versus personal versus, hey, we drove to Kingman for work. Now we're driving over to Tahoe to do a little fishing on the way home. This is partially
Right.
uh, pleasure. Now this is business. How do you do all this? Well,
Right.
that's one downside you have is no longer can, especially when you're in college, right? I think that's the real big one. You're in college, you do these road trips together. Somebody's got a car, people chip in for gas. Here's
Yep.
$5, here's $10. Oh, now, well, wait a minute. How many miles do you see this when you go out to eat? People are like got their phones out and calculating.
Oh yeah.
no,
Oh
no,
yeah.
no,
It's
no,
crazy.
I'll give. Oh
It's
no,
got
you
right
only
down to
drove
a
7 miles.
penny.
You only drove. Well, wait a minute. This was no, no, no. This we didn't have to do that roundabout there. Blah blah blah. You know.
Right.
So then, hey, what about when you pull into a parking lot, right?
Mhm.
So you go to a shopping center, you get to your destination, and now you got to drive around the parking lot a couple
Right.
times.
You could do like a mile driving
Yeah,
within the bounds of a private or a commercially leased space. Where does it? What does that count?
right.
Where does that count?
Does that count? Yeah, does that count?
It can. It certainly counts when it comes to the condition of those parking lots and
Yeah,
the wear and tear on the lots and on your car. It's
but
not
it's
like your car doesn't feel like it's being driven around.
but that's a privately owned parking lot most of the
Yep.
times. You know,
Yep.
and then what do we do with, hey, you go down to the beach and you're looking for parking and you got to
Mhm.
circle around or circle around. And that was one
Yep.
of the things that really irritated me this Sunday was I got on the road to go out. I had to go out towards your place
Okay.
and I go down to make my normal route to get on the freeway
Hmm.
and the freeway entrance is blocked off by Caltrans. Now I have about a 3 mile detour to
Yeah.
get to the next place. So
Yep.
is that my fault? Now I'm going to get charged for that.
Yep. Yep. But it wasn't your fault. There was no notice or notification that that was occurring. There were
Right.
no advanced warning signs, nothing like that. But yeah, at the end of the day, they don't care. They're going to look at that first odometer number, that second odometer number, and what's the mileage?
Yep.
What's the cost? And charge you for it.
So so then we get into there's famous case called decision dilemma, and basically you could see some of these lawsuits up in Beaverton, Oregon, and things like that. I'll let you folks do your research, but there's a famous case. We'll try to include it in the blog post, but famous case on decision dilemma. Decision dilemma is when you travel down the road and you come to a stoplight and it turns from green to yellow to red, and you're close enough, you have to make a decision. Do I go or do I stop? And so there was some engineers that had determined there's a great way to get people cited for tickets and make some money in our city, and that was to shorten the decision time by reducing the amount of time the yellow light stayed on. So most people will say, "Oh, we got 3 seconds or 5 seconds before it flips over." Well, they were
Right.
reducing it, and in this Beaverton case, the person said, "Well, it's only a millisecond." Yeah, it's only a millisecond or 1.2 milliseconds shorter in this case.
Right.
But at 30 miles per hour, that vehicle travels 7 feet in 1.3 milliseconds. And that's a
Yep.
big difference, right? So when you start looking at it, you say, back to Steve the conspiracy theorist or Nostradamus, which one you pick is your choice. But Matt, do you think if Caltrans is short on a little bit of money, do you think they'll just somehow come out and say, "Oh, we need to do some road. We got to close this road. Now drive all the way down here to your next exit or this one." I mean, I drove when I was doing the 22 to the 405 and they closed it without any detours. And I circled around that thing 2 or 3 times because
Hmm.
this one was closed and the next one down was closed that I could find, that the GPS took me to. So I probably added about 7 miles doing the circle,
Right.
right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
is that an easy way for them to gin up some additional tax revenue?
It's I don't know that they would do it to the point where that would be the sole reason, but I bet you that would be a line item in the decision making. Be like, hey, this will generate X amount because this many vehicles use this, and they will have to follow this path, which will be X amount of miles more, resulting in this extended amount of revenue that will be received via this project while we are working on this project. I can absolutely even see them saying something like, having that excess mileage will pay for the project.
Right? So let's take a look here. We're going to do some calculations for you. Gas tax, California. Yeah, I think so. What is it per gallon?
Well, I'd say it's like $1 or $2.
Per gallon. Sales tax, fuel rates. Size tax. Excludes aviation gas, 0.08, 57, 2.2.
Yeah, it
What
looks
is it,
like
like 60 cents a gallon or something?
yeah, it looks like they got a percentage and then an excise tax rate as well, so it gets a little bit convoluted.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I thought it was more like $1.
yeah, I thought so too. Let's see. Yeah, see one right here from July 23rd to this year. Looks like that's 8 cents.
8 cents plus the 57.
Yeah, plus the 57. Okay, yeah. Yeah, that's right. So yeah, that's 65 cents.
So if you got, can you do the calculation of, let's say, 20 miles to the gallon, 65 cents?
Sure thing. Let me bring up my calculator and I'll take the 20 miles per gallon.
Yeah, just do 20 miles. So 65 cents divided by 20.
Yep. All right. Let's say yeah, 60 miles. Yeah, 60 miles at 20.
No, 65 cents. I'm putting it on the screen here. 0.65 divided by 20 is 3.2 or 0.0325 cents per mile driven. Right?
Right.
Now,
right.
How many cars are on the 405 a day?
Thousands.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean it's like 10,000 a minute. So
it's 10. Yeah.
So let's just take rush hour and we'll say because there's 13 million people that live in LA County.
Yep.
And we'll just throw a low number out there. 20,000 vehicles that have to do for the departure, right? We just did this. We just did the departure because the 101 was closed for the wildlife bridge, and the departure added about a mile to it.
Right.
So let's take this and we got 1 mile at 0.0325 cents times 20,000 vehicles. So now times 20,000 vehicles equals $650.
Yep.
Right? And you'll say, well, that's not a lot. Yeah, but that's just a couple hours.
Right.
And then you take that times how many days?
Yeah, how long that project take? 30 days?
Yeah.
How big a project are we talking about?
Yeah, so let's just say they do a detour of 1 mile. That's just 1 mile, one way.
Right.
Annual buildup of that is $237,000. Now, if we take all the freeways all over the place and all the reroutes, and my little reroute was like 3 miles, wasn't 1 mile. So you start adding this around, and you can see how these costs are going to tally up into big, big, big numbers over the course of the year. So that's Caltrans. Now, if I'm an engineer and I'm coming into my city, boy, I can make some really nicely designed flowing roads. You see this all the time. around
Right.
here and
Right.
around there, and now I'm doing it per mile driven, and my roads are much longer than they need to be.
Yep.
Even by a half a mile. How many vehicles cross the Golden Gate Bridge every day?
Oh yeah, thousands, tens of thousands for sure.
And I did see that they had a nice detour up there, new
Mm-hmm.
roadway detour up there. So, is that a factor? I think it's a factor.
Mm-hmm. I would think so. I mean, I'm trying to picture another roadway on there, but I know they got a toll roadway. You go into San Francisco from the Marin side, then you actually get charged in additional. It's kind of like fast track. You actually get charged in additional tollway to actually drive through there to go south on the bridge.
Right. Well, they're saying 112,000 vehicles a day.
Okay, I can believe. Yeah.
Let's see. The Golden Gate Bridge reached its all-time peak high in '89 after the earthquake of 162,000 per day.
Yeah, because they couldn't use the Bay Bridge.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get a number that's a little more. Yeah. So here again, they raised that fee to $9, $8.75 for fast track.
Wow.
Times $112,000, 112,000 cars a day.
God.
You do the math. It's a lot of freaking money. And
Yep.
so when you start looking at 112,000 vehicles traveling a detour of 1 mile, that's a lot of money adding up every day, every
Yep.
day, every day, every day. That's 5 times the amount that we just showed. So $1
Yep.
million for a 1 mile roundabout. It's an unfair, non-controllable issue. And so now we get down to our second downside, which is you disincentivize the auto manufacturers from making vehicles that are actually fuel efficient because it no longer
Yep.
matters. Now I can do horsepower, I can do all kinds of things that really take more fuel because there's no tax on fuel. It's just how many miles you drive it.
Right.
So
Right.
who cares if I want a race car? I want a race car. And this is simple. If you look at some of these vehicles, Matt, I did a whole bunch of vehicles here for the gas, and let me just pull
Yeah.
these up because this is great. You start looking at um, some of them, and you're like, wow. Lots of people love BMWs and Mercedes Benz and Porsche and Jaguar and Audis and all these high highfalutin fancy cars. I like them too.
Right.
They're nice looking. But when you start doing combined miles per gallon, well, here's the Honda. Honda is ranging somewhere between 26 to 36 miles combined fuel. And then here's our
Right.
Mercedes Benz 11 to 24 combined.
Ooh.
That's a big drop.
Yeah.
And
No
then you
kidding.
got Cadillac from 18 to 23. You got Ferrari. Ferrari gets better than some of the other ones. 12 to 19.
Wow.
Mostly
12 in city.
12. No, this is combined.
This is combined. Jeez.
So 12 to 14 is really the range.
Yeah.
Jaguar combined 18, 19, so 18 and a half. Land Rover 16 to 19. And Dodge, you would think that these would get better mileage. 13 to 21. Most are 13, 15, 17. And
Wow.
so you're looking
Okay.
at that and you're going, hey, people are buying these cars and they're getting really low gas mileage. So they're spending a lot more on gas tax. So I have an incentive to get a car that is better on gas. But
Right.
if you do per mile driven, now the guy that drives the Ferrari or the Dodge getting a benefit while I'm getting penalized. I have
Yep.
a car that takes less fuel to operate, and now I got to pay more because I'm on a miles per hour miles driven. So
Yep.
that's not fair, right? And
Yep.
same thing with the
Exactly.
electric. The person paid all this money for the electric vehicle. Now they're getting penalized the same as the guy that's driving the environmentally destructive Dodge based
Right.
on those gas mileage. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that, just on the ones we looked at right there.
Right.
So that's a real big problem when we start to look at it. So we have no incentive to make fuel efficient cars. It's
Yeah.
just a bad design.
And on top of that, I mean, the whole impetus behind this kind of thinking, the direction this is going, I mean, getting all the way back to the EV is because gas cars, it's an environmental issue. It's destructive of the environment. Well, now you come full circle because now you're going to get to the point where the auto manufacturers will produce vehicles that are more damaging to the environment because now they don't have a financial incentive to actually produce fuel efficient cars. It's
Right.
like, oh, we don't need to buy. They're not buying them, so we're not going to make them. We're going to make the gas guzzlers again. We're going to
Right.
make these, the big boat Cadillacs from the 50s and 60s with with a V8 and huge cylinders that were just chewing up gas left and right.
Right. Which I had one. I had an old Chevelle. It got about 8 miles to the gallon.
Sound about right.
But I spent a lot more. I've always been helping out the community with my tax donations. You know, I spent a lot on gas, and
Right.
that produced a lot of tax, and I got really junky roads. Thank you. You know,
Yeah,
I really
exactly.
appreciate all the junky roads, especially when I ride my motorcycle and I'm holding on for dear life. It's like, seriously, can you do that? You know, can you something please?
Yeah. Yeah, the
But
danger for motorcyclists
right,
is so severe with a bad road. I mean, it's bad for all vehicles, but in particular, just that there's with only two wheels attached to the roadway instead, and I mean, it basically requires that engine to go, or that's going to topple down. Like if I stop a car, the car's not going to
tip
turn
over,
over on its side. It's not going to tip over on its side when I bring it to a stop, but a motorcycle will.
right? Exactly.
Yes, that stability, that's a severe issue for motorcyclists.
Right.
And what's funny is that's a relatively fuel efficient vehicle as well. So you're kind of steering those roads aren't good, you're steering people away from even using those.
Well, yeah,
So
and not only that, a motorcyclist should get a huge benefit. They're lightening the load on the road. They're
yep.
reducing the amount of fuel spent,
Mhm.
and they're reducing traffic by not having a big giant vehicle out there. You
Right.
know, it
Right.
helps in a lot of ways. So the other thing here is, what is the biggest factor on roadway damage? Well, it's weight. You
Yep.
know, and when I pulled up a bunch of vehicles here, Matt. So the
Mhm.
Honda Civic between 2,877 and pounds to 3,102 pounds. And
Sound about right, Victor.
I'll just go down here. Tesla starting at 3,862 to 5,248 pounds. That's a big difference.
Yep. Yep.
Harley Davidson motorcycle, 540 pounds to 900 pounds. Toyota Prius, 3,097 to 3,340. Toyota Camry, 3,310 to 3,595. Nissan, you get down into the 2,500 all the way up to 6,000.
Wow, they including trucks in that?
Yeah, this is the
That's a big
Armada.
range.
This is the
Okay.
Armada, exactly.
Right. Right.
The Mercedes Benz, this is 5,060 pounds.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, they're heavy
That's
cars,
really
man.
high.
That's why they take so much fuel. They all have V8s and some of the Jags have V12s, you know? Uh,
Right.
so again, there's a lot of downsides to this. I think the quality of life is the biggest issue. You know, how do you track this in an easy way where you get in your vehicle and you go? And a lot of people are going, the folks that are on the poorer side that don't have a lot of disposable income, they're not going to want to make driving mistakes. And we already see this. People are trying to conserve fuel, so they'll stop in the middle of the road and they'll do a U-turn where they're not supposed to. They'll cut you off to get over 2 lanes so they don't have to drive around the block, right? And
Right.
it's partly environmental, and the other part is financial. And so now, if you're telling people, "Oh, we're going to charge you miles driven," and you have all this stuff, like who controls what roads are closed, what the detour routes are? How do you get a credit for that? You know, what happens
Right.
when you drive down a private road? All these things. It's a nightmare from a
Mm.
quality of life standpoint. The other big issue is the privacy factor. And I guarantee you, once they have their hook into the privacy of your vehicle and where you're going, then it becomes okay, what's next? What do we do next? The other thing
Right.
is, if you got to do it on an app, well, that means you have to have a phone. Now you have to have a charge for a cell phone plan, right?
Hmm.
And now
Yep.
you have to carry a phone. Your phone is your choice. And that means that you have the ability to pick and choose for your convenience what you do with your phone. But now
Right.
if you're required to have a phone to operate a vehicle, well,
Always required to be charged, always required to be on.
right. And we ran
Yeah.
into that with when we were on the boat. Like, oh, this isn't charged, you know, we gotta have this charge, that charge. Oh, I don't have the charge. Like, ridiculous.
Yep.
So the point is, it's just more and more tightening of all these controls, which increase stress levels, reduce quality of life. And we see this all the time. We see it with the HOA agreements where they're like, oh, you can't make noise, you can't do this, you can't have a bell, you can't have this, you can't. Hey, am I a geriatric sitting in a on a couch the rest of my life? Like, isn't the whole
Right.
point of this to be able to enjoy life? And we see this with all the environmental stuff.
Right.
Don't do this, don't do that, don't do this art project, don't do that. What is the point of being on this planet? It's to
Right.
enjoy it. It's to enjoy life, to do things. And here again, why do we drive? We drive for road trips, to go see family, to go do things, to go to work, to go experience events and everything else. And people are going to stop doing those things if the tax is too burdensome or the
Yep.
tracking of it is too burdensome. And
Yep.
some people can't afford a phone, you know, some.
Yeah.
And oh, you're crazy. No, I'm not. We saw it during the pandemic. We saw it with the laptops. People don't have internet access. They don't have laptops. You know,
Right.
I don't take my phone everywhere I go. Partly because sometimes I want to be offline. I just don't
Yep.
want to be bothered by all the business issues that go on, right?
Right.
Or what? Sometimes I forget my phone. Sometimes it falls off my motorcycle, crashes, and I don't have a phone for 4 or 5 days. What am I supposed to do? Not go to work because I don't have a phone with an app on there? You know,
Right.
it's ridiculous. So the point here is you have a disincentive to make fuel efficient cars. You have an incentive for individuals to increase. Like, I could totally see engineers designing cities so that they're more complex to get through so that they increase the tax revenue. You see
Yep.
it in certain areas where there's no U-turn, no U-turn, no U-turn. If you go to Millbrae, you'll see no U-turn, no U-turn, no U-turn. You can do that for miles. You can do that for literally 2, 3, 4 miles where you can't make a U-turn. And then if you do make a right and you come out, you can't make a left. So you still got to go down till you can do that. And you're going
Right.
all the way around. So, hey, if you really want to reduce the environmental impact, make it friendly to make some U-turns. You'll see this with the no turn signal, where there's no freaking turn signal. When I moved to California, I said, you got to be kidding me. Go down Melrose, no turn signal. You go down this one, no turn signal. You'll sit in that lane forever, backing up traffic because you can't find the time to make a
Right.
turn.
Right.
So
Right.
all of this adds up, and people are going to stop and try to make the shortest route possible. And in a world where you already are frustrated, you don't have a lot of privacy, got way too many people. This is the same thing as the Amber Alerts. Now they're using them for everything. And if you pay attention, you'll notice when you drive down these freeways and there's an Amber Alert on for something stupid like DUI or whatever, everybody
Right.
slows down to read it. Can we
Yep.
get traffic moving,
Yep.
please? So it's a
Yep.
quality of
All the
life.
time.
Yep, all the time. All the time.
Yeah.
It's a quality of life issue. And the
Yep.
tracking of this stuff, it's as stupid as the no receipt thing, right? Oh, we don't want paper receipts. We don't want paper receipts. Well, what am I supposed to do? You say you send me an email, it didn't come through. Did you do it?
Right.
Did you enter it right? Oh, we don't have that recorded. Oh, da 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 da. You know what? Give me a paper receipt. So if there's something I need to return, or it's a gift, that they can return it. Right?
Right. Right.
Ridiculous. Just ridiculous. So there's a lot of downsides to this, but it's coming, folks. Get ready. And if you're a city, you got a lot to lose in your individual taxes, the repair of your roads, people coming to your city, like Julian with the apple pies, you know?
Right.
How much do they
Right.
get out of that? What about Bisbee, Arizona? You know, that if they do this nationwide, then going down to Bisbee, is it worth it, Matt?
Yep.
Is it worth
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, one of my favorite things to do is to go on road trips. I've done cross country trips. I've done all around the West trips. We're talking thousands of miles. Why would I then want to go on I mean, I want to go on those trips, but am I going to be so happy to go on those trips if I'm driving thousands of miles and I get handed a $500 or $1,000 bill just for the trip when I get home?
Right, because you have no incentive for a fuel efficient car.
Yep.
You
Yep.
know, if you got a fuel efficient car, then you go in, you buy the gas, and maybe you buy the cheaper gas. You buy the 87 versus the 91 because you can run on 87, but that's out the window now. That doesn't matter.
Right.
Right. So now you're penalized because your vehicle does better and you can go further, but you decided you wanted to go over here for pleasure or
Mhm.
for work,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's ridiculous.
It
It just, there's a move in some way for the government to place the populace in cocoons, like
exactly.
from the moment of birth until we leave this earth, to place us in cocoons. And you have to understand that there needs to be a balance. Of course, there needs to be protections out there. Sometimes people do need to be protected from doing stupid stuff. I get it. But it's really easy to get too far to the other side, and it feels like we're rocketing to
No,
that point, Steve.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is definitely one of them. And
Yeah.
again, it's an erosion of that quality of life standard. And
Yep.
unfortunately, you know, there's a lot of disparities. I've said for years and years and years and years since I got into working with cities, uh, you know, I think that's misunderstood. A lot of people want to get on the city council. They want to really make their city great. And sometimes it's okay to preserve what you have. You know,
Yep.
you look at Redondo Beach, they wanted to do a bunch of stuff down here. And quite frankly, the citizens are like, you know what? We like our small little town. We like our little business. We want a beach that's not dirty and filthy and we want to be able to access it and use it. And then
Right.
yesterday I was down in Hermosa and there's all these vendors all over the place on the beach, like no permits, no nothing. It's like, no,
Like the street vendors, but maybe
yeah,
along the boardwalk there.
yeah,
Is that why they're doing it? Oh
yeah.
wow.
And you're
Okay.
like, for 20 years, this is a beautiful place. It's not commercialized. There,
Yeah.
you go to Hawaii, you gotta pay to be on the beach, not directly, but
Right.
rent a chair, rent an umbrella, rent this, rent that. This space is our space. This you can't
Right.
be in here. That's not
Right.
California beaches. It's like
Right.
go to New Jersey, you got to pay to go on the beach.
Right.
What? It's
Yeah. It's
public
pretty
space,
nuts.
man.
Yep.
So it that's what you're looking at, and you're looking at these roads that are going to be much longer than needs to be. And quite frankly, we didn't talk about the environmental destruction on the heavy EVs. It's a, it's an
Right.
unknown common fact for those of you that don't own Teslas and things like this. The Tesla owners that I speak to say that those cars run through tires. Well, where is all that tire tread going? Right? All that
Yep.
friction going into
Yep.
the environment. We're worried about microplastics and micro rubbers and all these things. Well, there you go. So
Right.
so you start looking at it and you say, we're not prepared. We got a faulty system. We're going to pilot a half-baked idea that's going to impact all kinds of cities, lost taxes. So when I got into it, I was about to say this and I started talking to cities. You have to have things that attract people to your city, but you don't have to be a city that's in constant growth and constant visitors and add more and add more and add more. Sometimes, like when you look at some of these areas around where I live, you're like, really? You're going to put 400 units here with no increase in the roadway? And then
Right.
then what? Everybody's frustrated. Everybody's irritated. Why? Why are you
Mm.
putting those there? Why are you
Right.
adding all this stuff there? There's no infrastructure for it.
Yep.
Sometimes it's okay to be the beach town that you were meant to be, which is a fun loving place that you can get through easily, park and go out and have a
Yeah.
margarita and a taco and enjoy the surf and stuff like that. But
Right.
you don't have to build everything up all the time. And I always say, it's the same thing. Well, we need more people to fund the Social Security and this and that and blah blah blah. And more people, more people. We need more people. Birth rates are. Maybe someone can explain this to me. But if I got 13 million people in LA and we go down to 6 million people and we have 400 Starbucks in LA, and now I got 6 million people. I don't need 400 Starbucks. I don't need those people to be working there. I don't I don't need all those shops, right? Like, okay, yeah, we got to fund Social Security, but there's ways to do that without just keeping adding people.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
I
I agree.
yeah,
People have an impact. We have to figure that out, and
right?
but that goes down a whole other thing, which I think is beyond the scope of what we're talking today.
It is
But
beyond the
yeah.
scope, but it is a quality of life issue.
Yeah.
And again, there's a lot of disincentives and there's a lot of ways to impact how you spend your tax dollars that are not
Mm.
within your control. Every detour is added. Every time you want to go somewhere out of state, you're going to be thinking about these things. Not that we don't already think about them, because we do. We think about the get fuel cost. I just said to you
Right.
the other day, we got to find a cheaper way to get to some of these agencies that we support, because we're spending a
Right.
lot of money on fuel.
Yep.
And but if we do that per mile, is it going to be reasonable? And then what's the headache of me driving? It's already bad enough that you got to jump in the car and think about traffic and everything else,
Right.
you
Right.
know?
I mean, it'd be an economic depressor too. I mean, think about it. It's like, okay, I want to go see a movie in a movie theater, which people are doing less and less. It's already going to cost me, let's say, $20 to go to the theater. But now, if I calculate the mileage between me and there, it's going to cost me another, another dollar in mileage to go there and back, and that doesn't even cover whatever the whatever gas price. I mean, because you're still spending money on gas, even if they get
Right.
rid of the gas tax in place of a per mile. You're still spending money on wear and tear for that. So at some point, it gets to the point where you go like, you know what, I don't want to make that trip. Maybe the local movie theater is a little bit too close, but what if you're meeting friends in a city that's 20, 25 miles away? I'm in North Orange County. Let's say I meet a friend down in the Newport area, the Newport Beach
Right.
area. That's like 20 miles away or 15, 20 miles away. I may look at that and go like, you know what, I love you, bud, but let's just talk. Let's just talk on the phone.
Well, that's already happening in the dating world. People don't want to drive. People
Yeah.
don't want to drive anywhere.
Yeah.
And so now only the wealthy people will be able to get dates
Yep.
because they're the only ones that can afford to drive over there. And people
Yep.
go, well, it's just a per mile charge, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it is a per mile charge. But in a more fuel efficient car, why you bought the fuel efficient car to begin with is that you were spending 0.0325 cents per gallon on your economy. And with that, you got what? You got 30 miles versus 20 miles. So 20
Right.
miles. Let's just do that real quick, Matt.
Yeah. 30 miles.
Here. So
Yeah. 65
0.65
cents,
divided
30
by
miles.
20 and 0.65 divided by 30. Yeah, you went from 3 cents to 2 cents a mile. So, 0.021 versus 0.0325. Well, that's a big difference. And now I'm
Yep.
paying the same as you. Where
Yep.
before, hey, maybe I did go over there to see the
Yep.
movie or see my buddy. And I don't really think about it because I think about, oh, I bought a gallon of gas, right?
Yep.
Not how many miles I get per whatever, even though those calculations are done. This is, at the end of the day, it's just a different way to charge. And really, what should be done is charge the EV to charge up, stop giving tax incentives and tax breaks and all this. And, hey, if you got an EV, maybe you pay per mile driven. I don't know. But
Yep.
I do know there's going to be impacts here, and it's not a good impact.
Right. Right. Yep. I agree.
Yeah. All right. Well, let us know if we were totally off base, if we haven't thought this through, if we don't know what we're talking about or not. But I do think there's a lot to be considered here. And unfortunately, I think privacy is the biggest out of all of this. Just how do you track where you've been and where you're not? And then you're going to have to argue with people about, again, it's miles driven. So how do you report that? How do you report it?
Yeah. It would require the tracker. It's either privacy or a crazy ledger of driving tracking that you're doing by hand.
I just got a whole thing from the car insurance, and they're like, we need images of all your vehicles, front, back, side, top, bottom, the odometer, the VIN number. Oh, we can't see this. Oh, we need a better picture of this. Oh, it's like, what?
Yeah.
Come take the picture yourself then.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I'm busy here. I'm working. What's the question?
Right.
But again, it's just so crazy in California. Insurers are pulling out. We got a cancellation notice on some insurance, health insurance. You just got to limit the ways that you are deteriorating the quality of life for people in your state and in your cities. If you're a city, have something that attracts people. If you need to raise money, have something that attracts people to your city. So Matt, tell people, road trip wise, where have you gone? Where have you gone, and what have you seen? Like, what attracts you?
Okay. I mean, I will find, I'll go on travel websites where others have traveled along these roadways, and you'll get these roadside attractions and these little things, and I know that doesn't really do it for for everybody. As Steve, I don't think it does much for him, but like I like to go drive to these things. There's a YouTube. I haven't seen this particular one myself, but there's a YouTube video I watch where this traveling couple go to this spot in New Mexico that has this giant pistachio. It's a statue of a pistachio. It's like 30 or 35, 40 feet. And people go out of their way to see that. And I'm enough of a dork that, yeah, I'll drive down and I'll take a look at this big picture of this big pistachio. I'll take a picture of myself by this pistachio, and and that town, and maybe I bought a pistachio related item in the store near there. Maybe I filled up with gas there. Whatever that money would not have gone to that town if
Right.
I wasn't drawn, or this couple the YouTube video, that if they weren't drawn to see this massive pistachio. So,
What town is it in? Oh, I think I
oh,
found it here.
yeah, you find it somewhere in it's southwest or south central New Mexico, I think.
It's world's largest pistachio was built in honor of Pistachio Lands founder Thomas McGinn. Timothy erected this 30-foot sculpture in memory of his father, Ontario County, New Mexico. Well, you and I did it when we were in Kingman, Arizona, right? People were out
Right?
there, weren't they? Out there,
Yeah,
there were.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so Matt and I were in Kingman, Arizona, for a client. We were working, and we finished up, and it's what? It's very hot out there, so our client closes at like 3 p.m. So we got in, we went down Route 66 to go back to the hotel, and off to the left we see the drive-through Kingman Route 66 sign. Well, guess what these two idiots did? We saw some people there, and the guy was hanging out the car and the woman was taking the picture, and we're like, oh, we got to get in line to do this, right? So we got in line, and then I got out and I said, oh, hey, do you want your picture taken? Well, they were from Italy. They're taking their picture at this sign. So there's an attraction there. You got to have an attraction. And we did it. I got to find that picture. What did I do with that picture? I must have put it in our Instagram file folder here to post. Did I do it?
Yeah. I don't remember seeing it, but I might have missed it.
Oh, here it is. Hold on. I'm gonna put this. Oh, yep, there it is. Oh yeah, both of our heads and we got the woman from Italy to take a look. And our truck it runs great. It's got 260,000 miles on it. It's Honda Ridgeline. We will definitely shout out to Honda on that. But yeah, paint, it's been through its paces. It's been in a lot of places, and it needs a new paint job. But yeah, I mean, we went to Bisbee, Arizona. Why? Because there's a motorcycle show there, and they got great little art places and cafes.
Yeah, Bisbee is a fun little town, but it's definitely off the beaten path. You have to drive there if you know what I mean.
Right.
You have to
You gotta want to go
be.
there.
Yeah, you gotta want to go there to go there. Yeah.
I stopped by Lone Pine.
Okay. Love that area.
There's a is it Lone Pine in that area? What's
by the Alabama Hills?
Yeah, I mean, we've been to Alabama Hills, but there's a petrified forest around that area, like Bishop area.
Yeah, I think that's up by Bishop. It's between Bishop and Death Valley, the roadway that goes. Yeah, but I know you're the bristlecone forest and
yeah. So one day I was driving back from that area up there, and I did stop in to take a peek at that. I do like petrified forest.
That's a lot of fun.
That'll be a trivia question, and when I die and you guys are at my funeral, you can What did Steve like on roadside attractions? um, we used to do a lot of hiking around those areas
Oh
with
yeah,
with
there's a ton
with
of
with,
hiking in that
with
area.
Jamie
That's a
and stuff, so we'd pull off for those things. So you got to have
Mhm.
attractions. You got to have good things there that people can come and see. What's one of the biggest attractions in Las Vegas that people want to do roadside attraction?
Take a picture by the Vegas sign.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right?
I'll stop. Here we go. Take a picture. Yeah. Yeah. That's a big thing. Hey, look, everybody, I'm in Vegas. That's like the first picture they put up on their Instagram or on Facebook or
Right.
or whatever. It's like, hey, look at me. I'm in Vegas. And yeah, we see that all the time.
And then you and I going down. This is so funny. We stopped at Terribles, right?
Yeah, that's right.
That
Yeah.
place was that place was pretty good. Then we
Yep.
have over here, we have Eddie's World, which is the biggest gas station in California. And they have the biggest candy shop you will ever see. Playing a little bit of the video here. Um, yeah. And I stop there all the time to get little pumpkin seeds because they got bulk pumpkin seeds and all kinds of stuff,
Okay. All right.
you know? Like, come on, you got to have an attraction. So what's your attraction? And if you say you don't need an attraction, I'm going to ask Matt, Road Trip King extraordinaire, whether or not
Sure.
he knows the world's only roadside attraction that was built specifically as an attraction for the state because they had nothing else coming there.
Huh.
Think about this. It's massive, and people go to see it all the time.
Is
And it's
is it
been
that is it that corn palace in South Dakota or
nope,
whatever?
nope, nope. Dude, when I say this, you're gonna be like, "What? Why didn't I think about this?"
Oh, the arch in Missouri? No?
No, that's even bigger than this.
Even bigger than that. Oh,
There's been
Mount Rushmore?
Mount Rushmore.
Mount Rushmore. Yes.
When you go through that tour, they say this was specifically designed so that people would come.
Come to South Dakota. Right.
So you got to have an attraction. You got to have something that's really great to do there, and people will stop by. No, they'll come and they'll take pictures and they'll do their Instagram thing. You have to have
Yep.
infrastructure for that. You have to be welcoming. Your residents have to want that kind of traffic through there because it does create traffic through there. Another big attraction that happens all the time up by Lake Elsinore area is the super blooms, right? And people come
Right, the
in droves,
wildflowers.
yeah,
Yep.
and it makes a giant attraction. And sometimes it's very hard for that city to handle. You know, the people and the property owners get a little irritated because people are not respectful of their private property and stomp through their lawns and stomp through
Right.
their fields and stuff like that, which is not cool.
Right.
But yeah, you have to have an attraction, so you have to think about those. I I did a whole pamphlet on I think like 100 things that cities and counties can do to increase tax revenue that are actually beneficial to everybody involved. It increases quality of life. It makes your city more appealing, your county more appealing, and
Right.
it doesn't create a negative around the people that live there, right? It's not an impact to them in a way that they're going to dislike. So
Right.
they get tax revenue and it's still beneficial. Like Matt would want
Right.
to do it without saying, oh my gosh, you're
Yeah.
penalizing me for going to do this thing, right? Because that's what most taxes are. It's a penalty of some sort. Yes, we get it. You have to maintain things. You need new police vehicles. You need new weapons, new uniforms. You need fire departments. All that. We're behind that 100%. What we don't want is that money going to work comp claims, to incidents, injuries, and waste. We
Yep.
actually want great roads. We want great services. And when
Yep.
you got a good balance of that, Like we've seen some towns up near 29 Palms and things like that, which are like, hey, you know what? We're gonna bring in a Walmart because we need tax revenue.
Yeah.
And nobody wants the Walmart, but we're bringing it in
Yep.
to create jobs and create this and create that. Well, there's a lot of ways to do that without having something that not everybody wants. And
Right.
per mile driven is not what people want. So anyway, do your little pilot study, Caltrans, and see what you find. We got a lot of stuff going on over here. Don't forget to
Yep.
follow us on the YouTube channel. We talked this one to death. I hope we made sense. 20% off to our new clients, of course. We got the Udemy and Dollar Training Club. We got the new workplace violence program out there. We're doing a little Halloween fun time over at Lake Kachuma on October 26th. Did I show the giant pistachio? There it is, folks. Matt's seen it. Matt, if you have a picture of you next to the giant pistachio, we'll put.
I haven't been there yet. It's on my list of things to do, but I can find
Get
pictures
there.
of others with it.
Get there before the per mile driven tax happens. Yeah, so join us on our little motorcycle run. We got support vehicles, all fun, all clean. We're gonna end up at Lake Kachuma and to have some fun up there. Matt's gonna teach us how to fish.
Yep. Yep, absolutely.
We'll see you on the next episode of the Risk Control Show.